How often do we have these video clips that we're kind of like, man, I was looking for something about being tricked. I was looking about something about being like, oh, this, and then all of a sudden you get something different. And so I had this idea. My wife goes, what about the Minions clip with the ice cream truck? And I go, yeah, I can work with that. My son's going, oh, can we watch the entire movie? And I'm like, no, I'm just looking for this video clip. And it's like, he loves the Minions. But I want you to understand this. Jesus is not a minion. Jesus sees through our hearts. Jesus understands why we're asking what we're asking. Jesus understands what's going on. I think this passage here shows how Jesus sees the heart of humanity. And sometimes Jesus sees through our tricks. In fact, all the time Jesus sees through our tricks. See, God understands that we are not able to understand who God is. God understands that as humans, we are not capable of understanding the divine. Because if we are able to understand the divine, then the divine is really not divine. Does that make sense? Okay, I see a couple heads nodding. We'll keep moving. I think a lot of times we end up becoming James and John. We go to Jesus saying, I really, really want this because I have this great master plan in place. Or I really, really want this because it's going to elevate who I am and what I have. It's going to make me better. It's going to make me have this. And Jesus sees through our humanity and understands that what we want is not always what we need. And what we ask for is not always for the right reasons. See, I think this passage here has several key aspects when we look at the passage. There's this aspect of that Jesus never answers yes to their question. Because they ask, we want you to do whatever we ask. Has anyone ever had that situation where someone comes up to you and you kind of lay out the little trap question first? Goes, hey, do whatever I ask. I've probably said to some of you guys in the room, hey, Janelle, would you do everything I ask? And she goes, great. He's about to ask me to take out the trash, clean this, do that, make muffins. Yeah. Jesus doesn't work that way. Jesus doesn't always say, yes, right away. Instead, Jesus kind of goes to the question back to him and goes, what do you want from me to do for you? See, God sees through our humanity and sees that sometimes we're asking for things that we don't even know we're asking for. They asked, let one of us sit at your right hand and the other at your left in glory. Jesus sees in their humanity that they are not asking for something that's going to grow the kingdom, but instead they're looking for a way that their faithfulness to Christ gives them glory. Their faithfulness to Christ gives them a place where their position and status is raised up. Now, Christ has grace on them. Because Christ doesn't just say, look, you're asking for your own motives. You're asking for these issues that just aren't kingdom focused, and sends them away. But instead, he says there's more to that. He teaches, and we look at this passage and we understand that Jesus teaches both the disciples that are asking and disciples who are there going, we're really pissed at these two because they wanted power and authority over us. See, I think we need to understand that Jesus is not a minion that can be simply asked for something with a trap. I also think we need to understand that Jesus is not a Coke machine. Yeah, okay. Have you ever seen this Coke machine that offers everything? This is what they look like in Washington, D.C. I was there this summer. But the reality is, how often do we go to God saying, you know what, if I put my 25 or 75 cents in, or $3.50, whatever it costs in New York City, or Washington, D.C., I'm going to get what I want out of it. See, God doesn't operate in that way. God doesn't operate from these ways where we go, God, I really like you to give me the power and the status that would make me look better. A lot of times, God goes, you really don't need that. Let me give you what you need. We all do it. I know I do it. I'm kind of like, you know what? God, if we could just have this. If I could just have this. That would give me this and would lead to this, and then maybe I'd have that. But God gives us what we need in these moments. Because think of it this way. What would happen to our faith if every time we went to God and it turned out to be like a fast food joint? Yeah, fast food like Five Guys. We said, here's my $10 for my burger and fries, and we got what we wanted. Would we really trust in what God's doing? Or would we just say, you know what? God's like this magical genie. I just kind of say, you know what? God, I need this. Poof, burger and fries. See, God realizes that even though we ask for certain things that are for our own benefit, that's not always what we need. See, God's grace is that God meets us where we're at, whether we are asking for God's kingdom or asking for our own humanity. God says, I will give you and provide in a way that your faith is grown, in a way that you don't always see exactly what you need at the moment, but when you see what I'm giving you at the end, there's a way that you are challenged and a way that you grow. The question is, do we have faith that God will provide? Or do we look at God like a vending machine and then get frustrated when the vending machine doesn't work? Or we get frustrated when the Five Guys doesn't kick out our order correctly because we ask for our fries extra crispy or unseasoned? Or do we get frustrated because someone else had a better response? Their vending machine kicked out this or that, or they got this. Or they get that better job promotion, or they got that better grade in class, even though we've been faithful with these little things. See, I think when we understand that Christ looks at us and has grace on our lives and answers challenging questions back. Because when we look at this passage, we realize that Christ answers them in a way that he gets them to say something. He gets them to make a bold statement. See, Christ asked them when they said, do you know what you're asking for? Jesus said, can you drink the cup I will drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? What do they say? He gets them to say yes. He doesn't set them up. He doesn't trick them. He just gets them to say yes, because I believe that Christ in this moment says, if I can get you to live into this yes, you will understand that it is more than what you're asking for. Being a Christian is not about power, not about experience. It is not about the way that we rise up. Instead, being Christian is about the way that we serve and live. And then Jesus turns to the 10 who are frustrated at these two that have asked for this. And he calls them together and says, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and there are high officials exercise authority over them. It is not so with you as Christians. Instead, whoever wants to be the great among you must be the servant. Whoever wants to be first must learn to be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. See, Jesus calls us back to this answer of why are you asking for what you're asking for? Are you asking for purposes that benefit you? Or are you asking for things that benefit the kingdom? Are you asking for, God, give me the strength that I may serve? Are you asking for, give me the things that make me look better? Give me the things that make this Christian walk seem glorious. The one just doesn't sound right with the kingdom. I think with this idea of serving, I think about, there's times when we are called to serve. And what does that look like? I have a friend who is a very committed Christian. And he's very guarded with what he does. He goes to Sunday morning worship and he experiences congregational worship. He goes to a small group that meets outside the church on Thursday nights. And then he says, you know what? I will do two other things. I serve in this area here, and I serve this. And he's faithful about it. He's faithful with those two things. Nothing gets in the way of those two things. He says, I will schedule my time with my family so that there is no fourth Saturday that I'm not serving. See, I love the fact that Jesus says, but to serve and to give his life as ransom for many. It doesn't say for everyone, but for many. We're called to serve in this way that we say, what are the things that we're called to serve to? What are these life-giving ways that we give our lives that we impact many? What are these things? And I love it about this guy. Every fourth Saturday you will see him serving, and he doesn't let anything interfere. What are these ways that we say, you know what? I don't need to do everything. But this is where I am called to serve. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, I will fight to make sure that my calendar is cleared for those things. I'll have time off at another time. If someone offers me buck tickets and it interferes with serving in this moment, I'm going to say, you know what? I have another commitment. And I'll stay faithful to giving this servant heart. You know what? And even that means I get to go to the last Bucks game of the season when They're just playing for who gets the first draft pick. I don't know. Sorry, Bucks. I don't really have faith in your season. You're probably playing for another early round draft pick. But what does it look like that we understand what it means to be slave of all, that understands that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give our life as ransom for many? That God's grace pours out through what we're doing. That God's grace is seen in ways that we give our lives in great ways. See, I think when we ask the question, why are we here, we get to see the heart between what we ask God for. Are we asking God for things like a vending machine or a Five Guys or a minion that we can trick? Or are we asking God for things that build up God's kingdom? God's grace is that even if we are asking for the one, us talking to God starts working in our hearts and working in our lives so we see God differently. That we see God in a way that God will go, let me just get you to say yes to the right question, and I'll work on it from there. But the question I have is, when we truly ask, why are we here, and we want to be followers of Christ. We want to be baptized with the way that Christ was baptized. We want to drink the cup that Christ drank. Drink the cup that Christ drank from. Yeah, trust me, I'm not an English major. I get it. By us saying yes to those moments, we realize that God is working on us with God's grace in a way that we will not have the lives that are asking for things for us, but things that are for the kingdom. It changes us because we start following in the footsteps of Christ, where we understand what it means to serve and to live a life of service that calls us to things that are higher and beyond ourselves. See, I want you to understand this. The body of Christ thrives when the local body understands that we are all ministers of the gospel. Not when it's just Christ, not when it's just a few, but when we understand that we are all called to be ministers of the gospel. When we are all called to serve. And that doesn't mean we're all called to serve in every single faction or every single place or every single moment. But what are those things that we commit our lives to say, you know what, this is my place where I serve. Whether it be intramural sports, or whether it be Heaven's Kitchen, or whether it be Friend Zone, or whether it be serving by saying, you know what, I'm going to help set up every single Wednesday night. Or I'm going to serve by finding my niche, even if it's not here with Wesley, by getting hooked up with a local church that says, you know what, every fourth Saturday, we go out and serve the community. But when the local body realizes that we are all called to serve, and none of us are called to worry about what we get out of God, what position, what seat with God. We're not called to see what we get out of God or being Christ-like, but we are called to be Christ-like, that we give and serve in the ways that Christ did. When the local body, when the local church lives like that, lives are changed. God's grace is given in ways that the world can only go, that is a community that lives for Jesus. Because it's not about themselves. They've given themselves over saying, you know what, I don't care if all I'm ever is the pastor of 50 or 60 people. All I ever am is a small group leader who only has 10 people. All I ever am is this person that never gets acknowledged, but I serve faithfully. People see that because they see God's grace going out from your life. When you live in such ways, I think you live in this idea, as Paul says in Galatians 2:20, I have been crucified with Christ and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live now in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. It is these moments that we live that God's grace is seen through us. That we aren't seen as maybe sitting at the right and left hand of God, but instead we're seen as being servants of God, giving God's grace. God's grace is that we may not always start there. We may start with asking God for things because maybe we really just want a better job. Or we want a little things better to pick us up. But Christ challenged us going, do you really want what I have to offer? Do you really want to be baptized with the grace that is in my life? Do you really want to drink from this cup? And when we answer yes, we realize that God is working on our heart to take us deeper. It's in these moments that we understand that we are called to serve and not be served. God's grace is that whether we have struggled with either being the people who are pissed at those who try to get position, or whether we are the people who try to get position, God's grace is reaching us working in our hearts saying, come follow me and don't care about those things. Let's serve this watching world in a way that they experience God's love. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I pray that you would just continue to stir our hearts, that we would love and serve you in great ways. That we would